Number full script cold open, 0 o'clock on one ordinary night. In one small town, hundreds of people stepped outside at the exact same moment and looked up at the same impossible thing in the sky. No warning. No explanation. Just panic, phone calls, and a shared moment that local officials still won't fully address. What if I told you the strangest part isn't what they saw, it's what happened to the witnesses afterward? By the end of this video, you'll understand why investigators believe this single night might connect to encounters happening all over the world, from underground caverns to glaciers in the Arctic. And one of those connections involves a message that, when decoded, pointed to a date 6,000 years in the future. Let's start with the man who tried to warn everyone and paid for it. The Visitors Who Silence Witnesses, Bridgeport, Connecticut, 1953. Albert Bender wasn't some fringe conspiracy theorist. He ran the most respected UFO research organization in the country, the International Flying Saucer Bureau. Thousands of members, real momentum. And then, in less than a year, he shut it all down without explanation. Here's what he eventually admitted happened. One night in his own bedroom, three figures stepped through the wall. Dark coats, wide-brimmed hats, eyes that glowed, and a smell of sulfur that filled the room. They didn't speak out loud. The message arrived directly in his mind. Stop your research, stop publishing, stop now. Bender got sick. He couldn't eat for 3 days. And the visits didn't stop there. He said they came back, again and again, controlling him with headaches and telepathic pressure until he gave up entirely. What he described would later become known as the Men in Black, and not the kind from the movies. Witnesses across decades described nearly identical figures. Black clothing, glowing or solid black eyes, an unnatural unfamiliarity with basic human behavior, not knowing how to hold a pen, how to eat food they're offered. Some researchers believe these beings are connected to something even stranger, reported around the world. Shadow-like figures that seem to specifically target people who get too close to the truth about UFOs. So here's the question worth sitting with. If something doesn't want certain information getting out, what does that tell you about how important that information might be? Keep that thought in mind, because the next case isn't just about a sighting. It's about a craft that may have left a message behind on purpose. The Forest Where Time Itself Bent, Suffolk, England. December 26, 1980. Two U.S. servicemen were sent to check on reported lights near the edge of a forest outside their airbase, a routine call. What they walked into was anything but routine. As they got closer to the tree line, the air itself changed. Witnesses describe it as an electric charge crawling across their skin and through their hair. And then, impossibly, everything around them seemed to slow down, like time itself was dragging. Beyond the trees sat a craft, triangular, 6 to 7 feet tall, jet black. One of the servicemen walked around it and found something on its surface that stopped him cold. Symbols, glyphs, not random markings, a pattern. He reached out and touched the craft's surface, and said information seemed to pour directly into his mind. The next day, compelled by something he couldn't explain, he sat down and wrote out a long sequence of ones and zeros. Decades later, someone finally ran that sequence through a translation program. The message read, in part, a mission of exploration, continuing for the advancement of all worlds, origin year 810. Year 810. Not a place, a time. Both men suffered lasting effects, vision problems, gum discoloration, recurring nightmares of figures who weren't aliens at all, but humans from thousands of years in the future, returning to fix something that had gone catastrophically wrong. If that's true, the question isn't, are we alone? It's, what happens in our future that's bad enough to send someone back to stop it? Hold on to that, because our next stop is the most famous crash site in history, and what one geologist found buried there might be physical proof that something did come down. The pieces the government missed, New Mexico, 2019. For nearly a decade, geologist Frank Kimbler has been quietly combing a stretch of desert near Roswell, known as the Skip Site, the spot where, according to eyewitnesses, a crashed object first hit the ground in 1947, bounced, and skipped further into the desert before finally stopping. Kimbler's logic is simple. If something breaks apart while skipping across the ground, it leaves a trail. Tiny pieces. Things too small for a 1947 cleanup crew to find with the technology they had. And he's found over a dozen of them. When he laid them out for inspection, the first reaction wasn't excitement, it was confusion. These fragments were small, twisted, mangled, but pristine. No corrosion after more than 70 years. A magnesium-zinc composition with layered banding that, according to the geologist examining them, didn't match anything he'd seen in his entire career. Then, out in the field, using metal detectors, the team got a hit. Then another. Small wire fragments, twisted in ways that didn't match any known debris pattern for the area. Here's where it gets stranger. The exact same rare material, a tungsten and molybdenum alloy used in NASA spacecraft, with a melting point above 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit, would later turn up somewhere completely unexpected. Thousands of miles away. Buried 30 feet underground. We'll get there. But first, we need to go somewhere most people have never heard of, a cave so big, scientists call it another world. The World Inside the Mountain, Vietnam, 1991. A local man stumbles onto an entrance to a cave hidden by jungle so dense, he can't even get close enough to look inside. He notes the location and moves on. Almost 20 years later, a research team finally goes in, and what they find defies belief. This isn't just a cave. It's the largest underground chamber on the planet, 40 stories tall, with its own river, its own forest, and sunlight pouring through collapsed sections of ceiling, creating an entire ecosystem that's existed, undisturbed, for an estimated 3 million years. But the caves themselves aren't the strangest part. It's what local residents say lives inside them. Reptilian, humanoid figures seen emerging from the cave entrance, believed by locals to live deep within it. And here's the pattern interrupt. This isn't an isolated story. Soldiers during the Vietnam War independently reported upright lizard creatures in cave systems. In Peru, near Cusco, locals describe ancient tunnel networks tied to serpent deities, networks the Peruvian government considered so dangerous, they sealed every known entrance. Some researchers connect all of this to descriptions found in ancient texts, beings with large black eyes, living inside the earth, not arriving from outer space at all. Which raises an uncomfortable possibility. What if some alien encounters aren't visitors from above, but residents from below? Now, about that strange metal from Roswell. It turns up again, but this time 7,000 miles away in Russia. The microscopic machines buried for 50,000 years, 1991, Russia's Ural Mountains. Geologists searching for gold instead found something that made absolutely no sense. Thousands of tiny metallic coils and spirals, buried more than 30 feet underground, some so small they're a fraction the width of a human hair. Under an electron microscope, these objects looked machined, deliberate. Spiral structures, precise coils, and when analyzed, scientists found they were made from tungsten and molybdenum, the same materials found at the Roswell skip site. Based on the depth at which they were buried, researchers estimate these objects could be over 50,000 years old. Here's the contrarian angle most people miss. This region of Russia has a long history of reports involving cigar-shaped, fire-trailing craft, leading some to wonder if this could be a Russian Roswell, a crash site so old it predates recorded history entirely. If true, it raises a bigger question. How many crash sites like this exist around the world, buried and forgotten, waiting for someone to dig in the right spot? Which brings us to a very different kind of investigation, one that doesn't use shovels or metal detectors at all. The team that sees UFOs with their minds Pacific Northwest, 2019. A former British intelligence officer, the same person who once ran the UK government's official UFO investigation program, joins a team conducting something unusual. A live skywatch combined with remote viewing. Here's how it works. In a separate, windowless room, two remote viewers are given nothing but a random 8-digit number. No context, no target description. Just a number and a pencil and paper. Outside, the field team sets up infrared cameras and live satellite tracking, watching the sky above one of the most UFO-active locations in the country. As the International Space Station passes overhead, visible, bright, easily explained, something remarkable happens. In their separate, isolated room, both remote viewers independently draw nearly identical rectangular shapes. Coincidence? Maybe. But minutes later, the field team spots something the satellite tracker shows nothing for. A fast-moving object, visible to the naked eye, caught on camera, then gone. No satellite, no aircraft.